All right, we're going to call the meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the Board of Education. We'll start with roll call.
Robert Coleman. Nathaniel Malton.
Here.
Kate McKinnon.
Here.
Deb Olson.
Here.
Aaron Birch.
Here.
Marcia Schurz.
Here.
Paul Johnson.
Here.
And we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion, we approve the agenda the way it's printed.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're moving on to the consent agenda. I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And we'll be moving on to informational session, board reports. On Monday, July 1st, we had the Committee of the Whole. Shut this off quick. We didn't have any student, staff, and community recognitions. We had our referendum facilities committee recommendations presented to us, and we went through those. We talked about the high school football field water meter, Kids Hope USA continuation and expansion, student handbook update recommendations for the Spooner Middle School, elementary school, and high school. We had a second semester update for the academic gap reduction, or achievement gap reduction presentation by Mr. Hopke. We had a Tech Ed PD presentation on Try One, social media archiving information given to us, as well as updates to board policies regarding our committee structure now that we've gone to the Committee of the Whole. We had food policy or food service policy updates based on our food service audit. We considered the 2019-2020 WIAA membership. We reviewed lead custodian, media center aide, instructional support specialist, math specialist, reading specialist, and interventionist job descriptions. We discussed the rollover of activity accounts. Also discussed board members becoming part of the safety team in our district. The standard protocol or standard response protocol memorandum of understanding was presented. Health services and team wellness 2018-19 annual report was presented. The 2019-20 academic standards were approved. Review revised Northwest Iceman hockey agreement. We discussed that as well. We had our 30, 60, 90-day planning cycle and our financial update. We discussed the approval of the vouchers. We convened into closed session for administrator salary negotiations, and there was no action taken. So those minutes, after being approved tonight, will be posted online for anyone that needs to review those, as well as the video is posted online. All right, we'll be moving on to community comments.
I'll make a motion, we approve those.
Oh, thank you. Do we do, oh, to approve the minutes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll make that
Can I have
motion.
a second to approve the minutes for the Committee of the Whole meeting?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Oh, that's, yeah. So that was just informational. We're good. All right. We have one person signed up for community comments, so I'm going to read our statute. Or per statute 19.83 parent 2 and 19.84 parent 2, the board will allow public comments. The community comment section will be limited to 45 minutes. The time for each individual will be divided. So you've got the floor, Mr. Fiesel. The community comment section of the meeting agenda provides members of the community with the chance to speak directly to the school board. It is a valuable opportunity for community members to have questions, concerns, requests, and ideas heard directly by the school board and administration. Participants are asked to step up to the microphone so that everyone is able to hear when you speak. Providing your contact information on the community concerns sign-up sheet helps the district follow up with you on your item. Mr. Fiesel?
I won't take 45 minutes. In front of you is a document from the Rattler Corporation regarding the stadium field. I know during the referendum meetings, the idea of turf was discussed within those meetings, and then the ballpark figures were kind of discussed. And so Ross Rattler, who is part of the Rattler Corporation, put together some figures for us as well as a rendering, just so we could kind of have a pretty firm estimate on what that truly would cost to do the field. This just came across this afternoon, so that's why we weren't able to get it to you before then. Couple things about the Rattler Corporation. They're generally the people that have done a lot of the facility upgrades, especially with athletic complexes in our area. If you look at Cameron, Cumberland, Stanley Boyd, Altoona, Superior, just a few in our area that they have done, and all the feedback and reviews generally have been really good. I do know that I think Luke has also worked with them as well. So there's confidence in the fact that, and they did the original field. So they've got the understanding of how that field was built, how it was constructed. And so the estimate they provide is truly a pretty legitimate number for what that would cost. And then you can obviously see the rendering just so you can kind of put the picture in your mind as to what that would look like. All of the green space is the part that would be replaced. That's currently grass would be replaced with synthetic turf. All the field markings would be present, obviously, for football and soccer out there. My reason for speaking tonight is that I really hope that you'll consider putting the turf project on the community survey as a need item for our students in our district. And there's a few reasons that I think are really important with that. The first is the playability of the field and the surface. So that surface currently hosts varsity and C-team football games. It hosts varsity boys soccer and varsity girls soccer. And so there are quite a few varsity and lower level contests that happen on that grass field. And so by going to synthetic turf, we're able to not have to worry as much about field conditions and weather with that. The amount of use when we go to synthetic turf increases. For example, right now during the summer, we have a camp going on right now. Boys soccer had a camp going on this morning as well. The stadium field is off limits. It's not able to be used, during this time as it's getting prepared for the fall season. And so with synthetic turf, both of those events that happened today would have been able to take place on that complex. And so really that complex gets used for competitions, whereas once that synthetic turf would be there, we'd have the ability to host camps at the high school level. Teams can practice on it. All of the usability and playability increases. Community and athletic events, it has the ability then to also assist us with our youth sports. So whether it's youth football, youth soccer, youth baseball or softball clinics in the spring that oftentimes are struggling to find grass and spaces to host their clinics. The turf is usually one of the first things that loses the snow. And so it's usually one of the first things cleared off. And we have the ability then to truly make that complex a community-based place where we can host other events outside of just varsity athletic contest, which is all we can do out there right now. Otherwise, we're going to lose the field conditions. The curriculum-based events that can happen out there. So if you look at physical education classes, I can speak to it this spring as we were trying to get our practice fields into shape, and soccer had to do the same thing a few years ago. But also we're playing games on the stadium field, so when the weather is nice, outdoor space, even though we have a lot of green space, there's not always a lot of places to go. When fields need to get repaired and redone, that takes away opportunities and learning environments from other students. And with that complex done that way, we can again be outside, there's a space, you're not worried about the wear and tear or needing to let grass seed take and water take. So from that standpoint, again, the usability is important. Our band program, all of a sudden now has a spot where they can prepare and they can practice. You know, there were times in years past where, you know, as they're preparing to march, we can't have them march out there during the week, during the school day, because the lines are there. It makes that field not nearly as playable and not nearly in as good a shape and safety-wise. But they can't really go up to the practice fields because the same thing happens. So it's a difficult balance for them also to prepare for their competitions. You know, when they're off campus competing, they're competing on places where the markings are consistent. This would again allow them an opportunity in a space where they can prepare, you know, and they can, you know, compete at the best of their ability. You know, when you look at that field, you know, and I'll be the first to tell you that in the middle of August, before the first games are held out there, there's not a better grass surface around. Okay, our maintenance guys do a phenomenal job. And they work tirelessly and they work really, really hard to make that surface something that our community can really be proud of. But naturally, as the year goes on and the weather changes and the amount of games get played out there, it really takes one rain game in either sport to dramatically change that field. And we're not far away from that field when it wasn't taken care of the way it is now, from being a discussion point, at least amongst some of our Heart of the North football coaches, about the safety of the field. So when you have that many contests going on out there, you know, naturally each sport is going to play their contest in different places of that field. And that's going to affect the other one when they're competing. So at the beginning of the year, in the beginning of the fall, that field is in tremendous shape. And they work really hard to keep it in as good a shape throughout the year as they can. And I would say that based on the play, when we get to the end of October, and we're trying to play games out there, that field is, it's amazing what they do to get it playable and keep it in really good shape. But again, we're at the mercy of the weather there. You look at the spring conditions, you know, our girls soccer team, you know, they're out there right away. And that field never really gets a chance to get going for them, even to give them the type of surface that they deserve, you know, throughout their home competitions. So when you look at the field conditions, we're fortunate that we have the folks working on our field that we do. And so today it is in great shape. You know, but as we look at our vision moving forward, it gives us a really good opportunity to create a first-class environment year-round for a lot of our students. One of the questions I know probably comes up is, after we do this, when this turf needs to be replaced in 15 to 20 years, what's our game plan? You know, my advice would be that some of that cost to maintain the field currently would be set aside to offset the cost in the 15 to 20 years when that turf now needs to be replaced. And obviously we know when the end date or the potential end date for that turf would be, so we can plan as we move forward. You know, so that would be, I know, a question that maybe folks have, but without taking any more time, thanks for your time. I hope that we can get this on the community survey as a need-based item. I think we'll find that if you talk to schools who have done this, it benefits more than just one or two programs. There's a really good possibility that every student in our school will benefit from having a complex like that. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Fiesel.
Thank you.
Question for you. Do you know what the ongoing maintenance costs are for synthetic field? Because do they need to be sprayed or?
They generally need to be vacuumed. I don't have that number as of yet. No.
All right, thanks.
Okay, we'll be moving on to our discussion and action section. Item A is personnel recommendations.
You have two resignations before you this evening. Paige Nemec, varsity softball coach and C-team girls basketball coach, 3 years of service. Ryan McKinney, JV baseball coach, 3 years of service.
I'll entertain a motion to accept these resignations.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? I'd like to thank these both of these individuals for their service over the last 3 years. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Okay.
Okay, you have 4 hiring recommendations before you this evening. Chelsea Silas, High School Social Studies, replacing Lucas Phelps, and Mr. Schurz is the recommending administrator. Claire Henkels, 4K teacher, replacing Karen Nelson, Mr. Hopke, the recommending administrator. Holly Larson, speech and language pathologist, 4/10 full-time equivalent, and this is that new position. Mr. Ham, the recommending administrator, and Steve Daniels, assistant high school football coach, replacing Lucas Phelps, Mr. Lucius, the recommending administrator.
Thank you, and I'll entertain a motion to accept these hires.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? I'd like to thank the administrators for their recommending memos along with these. That's great, and we really appreciate that. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. We'll be moving on to item B, acceptance of donations. There are none. We'll move on to a fundraiser request.
So you have the football squad requesting running the annual Rails card fundraiser again. Funds raised are go towards updating equipment and ensuring safe participation for over 45 student athletes. And the recommendation is to approve the Rails card fundraiser for 2019.
Thank you, and I'll entertain a motion to approve this fundraiser.
I make a motion that we approve the football fundraiser, the Spoon Rails cards.
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We'll be moving on to item D, facility use requests for out-of-district and for-profit organizations.
I believe last month we had a request for the Shell Lake boys basketball for open gyms, and this month we have a request from the Shell Lake girls basketball for open gym space.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to approve this out-of-district and overnight storage facilities request.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving on to item E, to consider referendum facilities committee project recommendations. Mr. Schultz.
Hello, thanks for having me here tonight. We'll go back to this packet. I know last meeting I went through the measures with each school, and with that facilities committee that was formed, there was a needs and then there was an alternate discussion with that. Essentially, some of those alternates, there were strong feelings with the committee that those should move forward to needs, but if there was any type of questions, that's where we put them as an alternate. Our goal tonight is to solidify what the needs are, and then also the alternates as well. Essentially, what we're looking here for is the goal so we can start finalizing that community survey that will go out in October. So looking at tonight, as discussed, we're going to I'm going to keep it very high level with you guys. I'm sure you got your notes or your questions that you have, so I'll go right into it. So to start with will be the elementary school. Looking at the needs, is there anything at the elementary school that you guys feel should come out as a priority?
Should come out or come off?
Come off.
Okay.
And essentially, when you say come off, that means that will not be a part of the community survey. One thing to keep in mind, that the items that go on that community survey, that's ultimately what will help guide you to what your question is. Anything with the elementary school and priorities? Okay. Moving on, I'm going to go to the elementary school and I'm going to go to the alternates. Is there any alternates that are on there that should move to priority? I will point out for you a couple that were most in favor, but a couple had questions about. Existing office area and library space were two that were, if you are going to do a new office, it kind of makes sense to renovate that existing office area. More than likely, if you move that cafeteria, you'd probably use the music room as the new food service to get the food service out of the gym. So keep that in mind, where that cost for that existing office area could then be a new band. Or, I'm sorry, new music. Anything with alternates that you guys would move into priority?
Can you explain that a little bit? I mean, I was on the committee, but I'm still a little confused
Yep.
as to what you're saying.
So if you look at the diagram in the back of, with the elementary school, you will see the orange, which the new kitchen, right now, that's an existing music room, which helps save money because there's less new construction, really little to do with that space. That cost can really go down, but a lot of that money is including for actual kitchen equipment and getting all the hookups installed for that kitchen area. But you'll see where it says new music room, that's currently your office. So if you move the office to the south side, if that's something that comes back from the community survey and they would be of support of that, it would probably be a good idea to have some funds available to open up that existing office area into a music room. Does that make sense now? Be the tanning.
Sorry.
No, you're all right. So this is the current office. So if the office moved to here, there's a couple rooms in here, principal's office, where we could open
Right.
that up. That could become the new music room, because the new music room would more than likely, if we go this direction, the kitchen would move.
Okay, and I thought this was part of those needs.
So
I guess that's.
currently in the needs section, it's to make what is now the office a secure entrance. Keep the office as is and a secure entrance. And
What you have in there right now as a need is $3.2 million, and that includes the new office, that includes the cafeteria, and that includes the 4 classrooms.
the new office and the backside of the school.
Yes. It's nothing to do with the existing office.
Okay.
So
then-
that's where I would be asking you, as right now you have option 1 as a priority.
Yeah.
It would probably make sense to move the existing office area in there as well.
Yes. Okay.
I would recommend that we do that. Is there any disagreement with that?
I just have a question.
Yes, ma'am?
Is there an alternative? So I agree that it's definitely a need to move the cafeteria out of the gym space. Is there an alternative if we don't move the office? What is the alternative for the kitchen if we were to move the cafeteria out of the gym?
Right now, that could be an alternative. That hasn't been an option that has been brought up, but that could be something where you would just do a new cafeteria and a new food service area. We haven't come down to that option yet,
The
but
food service area would have to go into the cafetorium
correct,
addition.
correct.
Oh, okay.
That's why we tied those two together.
Okay.
So, question, on the survey, so whatever is agreed on, this would go on the survey, so people are gonna, in the survey, see these line items and put their opinions on it, or how's that look like far as the survey end of it?
Good question. So school perceptions, they're the experts on this. I'm not going to say how it's completely laid out, but usually what they do is they kind of do a maintenance, and then bigger ticket items, they kind of separate out. So there will be a description with each one of them, very well laid out, what they're looking at doing. So then there'll be a place for you to vote what you would vote, and there's also a section for comments.
Thank you.
Yes. Elementary school, moving the existing office area, I'm going to move that up. Is there anything else in that section that you guys would move up compared to what the committee has laid out for you?
To be clear,
Yes, ma'am?
these alternates will not appear on the survey at all.
Correct.
If we don't make them a priority.
Correct.
So I would like to see library space and drinking fountains moved up to a need to see opinion on those. Does anyone disagree with that?
I would agree with that as well.
if you've ever seen 5-year-olds sucking on that, drinking fountain, their lips are on it all the time, and if we want to keep healthy students, that is not.
I have no problem with the district improving it. I'm questioning, is that really something we need to put in on the referendum, or can we just budget
Put that as a budget item.
I'd say it's a budget item. It shouldn't, I mean, if we put too much on a referendum, we could be faced with people saying, you guys are asking for way too much of this little stuff for a referendum. You can find another way to put it in.
Okay.
Just like a scoreboard. That's why it's down below, I believe.
Oh, okay. That was discussion at the committee.
There was things that were brought up as the committee. For example, like a gym scoreboard, maybe there could be donations or somebody that could do that. Drinking fountains the same with the 11,000. One thing I do want you to keep in mind is look at the total dollar amount. You're talking about $11,000. So, grand scheme of things, it all goes onto the survey. But something to think about.
I mean, because we're not really going to vote on what is going to be there until after the survey, correct? Is that right?
Correct. Survey will come back, there will be a presentation, they will lay out to you of what they feel the community would support. So
Okay.
based off of that, then they lay that information out to you, that's where the hard questions start to come up.
So we could move that up there so at least they can say yay or nay, and then if they say nay, then Shannon.
We'll have the
it's-
feedback to deal with then. We can at least assess it with the feedback.
Right, with the feedback. And then if it looks like there's too much on there, then we can scale that back for those smaller items that we don't think that they
Right.
will support.
Yep. Okay? Anything else with the elementary school? Moving on to the middle school. Looking at the needs, is there anything with the middle school that are needs that you would take off? Okay, the only thing that I have for the middle school for an alternate would be the exterior sign. Looking at the elementary school, I'm guessing that one's not gonna slide in at the middle school. Okay, moving on to the high school. Looking at the priorities, is there anything with the high school that you would like to take off? Looking at the alternates with the high school. Yes, Deb, did you have?
I have one more.
No problem.
When we talked about, I'm moving back to the elementary school, I'm very sorry.
All the way back to the elementary?
Yeah, sorry. When we talked about the signage for the elementary school,
Yes.
we talked about the high traffic area and things, sharing with the community, doing other things for that sign other than just school-related things. So I don't know if that's something that we want to budget or ask the community if they want. So right now, there's no, I mean, traffic-wise, middle school doesn't have even a quarter of the amount of traffic that the elementary school does. And so some people don't travel past this high school, so then they wouldn't see those things that are being put on there. And so maybe that would be something that we should consider.
I see what
Maybe,
you're saying.
see what I'm saying? We can use that for community as well as school functions, things like that. If they're not traveling this way, they can see it traveling that way, especially if they don't have access to some of that information systems.
It's a good tool. The other thing to keep in mind with your elementary school one too is half your school year, it's probably buried under snow with how low it is.
Currently.
So, but
So,
that,
I would be in support of moving that up to a need.
just to
So
see
that
the
we
reaction of the
know,
community
yes.
on that one.
I would support that. What does-
Anybody else have any discussion on that, Paul?
I'm okay.
Okay.
We're going to the community.
Robert?
I think it can be a need. I personally think if there's something that are alternatives, put it on there. Let the survey decide. If it's not on there, it's not going. But if it's on there, they can always nix it, and they might even go for it. You're not going to get penalized, I don't think. This is not the final vote.
Right, this is just, what do you think? Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
no problem. So middle school? What about that sign?
I don't think there's a need for that one to go. Like, anybody else?
I mean, if we're kind of talking and staying consistent, and some of the thought, and I would agree with Robert, if it's not given as an option, it's gone, right?
Correct.
Then it's gone. If the other two buildings have one, you know, it's what it's at the front of the building, and if it still says winter concert December 12th and it's May 15th, you know, they're hard to keep up. It's a forgotten thing. You know, it's an easy thing to change, and I kind of agree with Robert.
Okay.
Why not ask?
Well, what does our middle school principal think? I mean, do you need that? You want it?
I think it would be a really cool thing to have. Right now, we don't even have what the elementary school has. We just have a sign that says Spooner Middle School, so we don't have a way to put an announcement out there at all.
Okay.
We'll put it on the list and put it on the survey. To the high school. Looking at the alternates at the high school, is there anything on there? Which a big one was tonight, athletic field.
I would like to, in response to Mr., the community comments, in previous districts where I was, I saw that increased use of the field. When it was a turf field, that the Fayette teams were out there. The baseball team used it early in the spring before the grass fields were ready. I think it might be a good idea to have the community input on that athletic field turf.
Okay.
So I think that maybe should be moved up so that we get community input on that.
Yeah, and the price on that, can we adjust that for?
Yep.
With the price that we
Yep.
have gotten?
I'll move
From
that
Mr.
down to the 1,094,000, I believe it was.
Okay.
Yep. Anything else on the high school that's an alternate that you would like to move forward? Another kind of discussion item that with the committee was the generator. That kind of went back and forth. Middle school has one. I'm sorry, elementary school has one, middle school doesn't, and this building doesn't.
I'd like to see a community opinion on that as
Yep.
well.
I'd like to see community
Especially
opinion on that.
considering that it could be used as a community-safe place in the event of an emergency.
I guess in kind of being consistent with what I've already shared, if nobody else sees any harm in asking for everything, I would say, why not ask? But I would like to hear thoughts if people feel that that's,
Well, and I have to say, I was in the gym the other night with the divider situation. And I'm thinking, after watching that and hearing that and seeing those items up and down, I think that should also maybe go on to a survey. And if not, maybe we can put it somewhere else. Because that is one thing that is something I think we need.
And again, like you said, the survey comes back, and a lot of times it's going to be what is the appetite from the community. That's where we come back and regroup and go from there.
Plus, by putting it on, I mean, it gives you room to take some things off.
right.
But if you are lean and mean at the front, and anything comes off, you're not getting anywhere close to what you want.
Right.
So I say there's a lot of positive reasons to put it on. Gives you room to say, okay, well, we can take that up, but can we have the rest of the things?
Exactly. Exactly. I'm for that as well.
Okay. I will get this updated. You guys are awesome. That was very efficient.
A question for you.
Yes, sir.
How about the discussion around possible middle school addition onto this building? How does that play in with the school perception survey?
Yep, good question. So that would be the last ticket item before we get to the A&E part, best for last, but is obviously the big question of moving the middle school over here to the high school. There's a couple things to keep in mind, but if that's something you guys would like to put on the survey, we can do that. The next step of this process is hiring an A&E firm. That's where I've given you guys ballpark estimates with that. The estimates that I gave you, keep in mind, is moving the middle school here. That is doing nothing with the existing middle school. So that's got to be a part of that conversation. But if that's a conversation or a piece that you guys would like to be a part of the survey, we can absolutely go down that road and include that information in there. But I would need some type of feedback from you guys, either as a group to say, yeah, let's decide to put it in there, or as a group say, nay, I don't think that's the right time.
Over the last 2 weeks from our last presentation until tonight, I talked to people in the community and asked, kind of how they felt on all 3 sections. And the people that I talked to, there was a unexpected, I think, for me, response of yes, in support of moving the middle school up here. That's a sampling of, those people that I talked to. So I'm interested in hearing what the greater population thinks about that. Again, I'm not seeing the harm in asking, but if others feel, tread lightly on that, I'm open to hearing that. But I'm interested in hearing what the population thinks on that matter.
If it's on the survey question, what I would be interested in hearing on the survey is, with the needs in the middle school, do you want to put that approximate 8 million towards maintenance, upkeep, or some of the things that we need to do? Or would you rather see us put that into a new building? As a survey question. If there isn't an overwhelming support, well, then I think there's our answer.
Yep. And if that is a direction you do go, absolutely, that'd be a healthy paragraph explaining what the maintenance needs are with the middle school and some of the things that need to be done there compared to moving it here. Absolutely. But again, another part of that conversation of that paragraph will be, what are we going to do with that existing building?
Right.
Needs to be a part of that.
The demolition cost of that, for example, if you compare that to the gym, which is going to cost us over $500,000. I mean, I hesitate to even ask the question. It seems like it's going to be really high.
It would be a larger number. You got to test everything in the building for environmental, remove all asbestos before you demo it. But we can work up an estimate with the A&E firm of what that could be.
Or there's options if you're gonna build a new building, there are options that you sell it, I think there's other options where you can pass that on to whatever. I mean, there are other options.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that's the option people are gonna want, but
Yep.
that wouldn't require costs.
I think tonight, that's getting a little further in the weeds. I think tonight is more of a conversation, are you interested in putting it on a survey? And then from the survey with the feedback, how that comes back with the dollar amounts will help guide us of what direction we want to go.
Yes.
So
I'm with Kate. I think that it's time to hear what the people want to do.
I agree.
Okay. We will do that. So my next item on the list then would be is looking for your approval for an architectural engineering firm. I showed you that spreadsheet. I brought those back in case any of you would like to see that one last time. But I would recommend that you move forward with SDS Architects would be my recommendation, just looking at what the fees would be. Experience, like I said, with all 4 of them. We worked with all 4 of them, all quality firms.
So I'll entertain a motion that we approve SDS as our architectural engineering firm.
I would second.
I made the motion then. Any discussion?
I
You're
made the
good.
motion.
Any discussion?
Well, does our administration, is that your recommendation too?
Yes, that's the recommendation that you hire SDS Architects as the A&E firm for pre-referendum work.
We'll do a roll call vote on this.
Robert Holland,
Yes.
Nathaniel Melton,
Yes.
Kate McKinney,
Yes.
Deb Olson,
Yes.
Aaron Birch,
Yes.
Marcia Schurz,
Yes.
Paul Johnson.
Yes.
Awesome. I appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you very
And we
much.
will more than likely see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be moving on to item G, to consider the irrigation system back billing.
Last month, at the committee of the whole meeting a couple weeks ago, the board was presented with the information regarding the back billing for the irrigation system. The total cost was $22,000 for the irrigation system, a little over $22,000, and then about $1,300 for the concession stand. And so we're just looking for approval tonight to go ahead and move forward and pay that back to the city over the course of 2 years.
I make the motion. Okay. All righty.
I'll second.
We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Predney, would you be available to answer any questions for us? Thank you.
I have some questions. The first question will be, when a facility is built, there's a main meter coming into the building, correct?
Yep.
And from that main meter, it usually branches off to different directions within the building, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Are you telling me that this was branching off prior to the main meter?
There's a main water line comes down from the water tower, 10-inch main. And there's a 8-inch main that comes into the school.
Okay.
Then it goes past that, and every April, I call the city, in the parking lot, there's a shut-off valve. And they turn that on in April, and that feeds the concession stand to the irrigation and the concession stand. And then in October, they turn it off. That's a meter. And,
My question again would be, is that prior to or after it goes through our main meter?
after, that meter's after.
Okay. So
But
in
that's a
other
whole
words-
different feed system.
Okay, hold on. You just said it was after our main meter.
Although, if you look at it,
If you look at it, T's,
that 10-inch water line right there
Carol,
comes down, branches off, that 8-inch goes into the school, right here,
where's our cursor?
that 10 continues this way, there's a 6-inch that goes into the concessions. The 10 goes all the way out here and back up.
It makes a loop around the school, the main.
I'm listening and I'm seeing everything you're telling me.
And the meter's here. The meter for the school is here.
So you're telling me that the water that goes to our football field is not being metered?
It is being metered.
Okay, prior to our main meters. I'm talking about I asked the original question
The
was.
main meter to the school?
Yes.
Yes.
And then it branches off before or after that is what I asked.
The school meter is before the meter going to the football field. But it branches off before the one going to the football field.
So it's a separate feed.
Separate
So,
feed.
so so let's go back one more step. If the sprinklers are running, let's say you go out and you turn on the sprinklers, and you go up to our main meter, and you turn the valve off, what will happen to the sprinklers on the field?
To turn the valve off where? In the,
At the main. At the main coming into our building, the one that's been being read.
At the school.
On the
The one
8-inch, if you shut off at the 8-inch,
Okay, can we have just one? I'm just asking.
they're probably still gonna go.
What's that?
They're still going to.
Probably still gonna go.
Probably, but we don't know for sure.
No, I don't. We don't know that.
That's a $1,000 question. It's a
Right.
$23,000 question. And we don't know the answer to that question. And that's all I've been asking, is I've been saying, is that before or after? Because if we have a meter that's being read and it branches off afterwards, we should be paying a lower rate for the stuff that's being out in the landscaping, because that's not going into the sewer. So if you were to read that meter out there, you'd be deducting it from this one over here, not adding on to it. It would be a deduction. Because you got one meter that's coming into the building that we're paying for sewer and water on. We got a second meter out there that tells us how much we're putting out onto our field. We shouldn't be paying sewer and water onto that meter. That should be a different rate.
You're not paying a sewer
So when
fee.
facilities sometimes are being built, they'll put in a second meter to show this meter is the one that should not be getting sewer charges on it.
But out there, we're not paying a sewer fee.
Yeah, you're not paying a sewer fee out there.
But it comes down to this, we don't know for sure. what
Yeah,
we're-
we do.
Because it hasn't been shut off and tested, is what I'm saying.
That's not what
So the
Mr.
question
Johnson
is,
explained to me.
when our sprinklers are running, and you go to the main meter on the school, and you turn off the valve, the sprinkler should go off. And you said they'll probably keep on running. We don't know.
I've
Probably.
never shut it off, right.
So the other thing you could do is this. Read the meter on the building, read the meter on the football field. Go out and turn on your sprinkler. One should be turning, not both, right? Have we checked to see if they both turn? We should probably do that. That's worth several $1,000s to us with this past bill as well as into the future. So forget about all the drawings and stuff. The bottom line is that when this meter's running and this meter's running, when you turn on your sprinkler, it shows that we're paying for it already over here. We don't have to pay for it a second time over here.
We're not paying it twice.
But if you're gonna turn on the sprinklers and this one does not move, and this one does, that means we're not being billed for it. But either way, what we're being billed in the building is a certain rate. We pay a premium rate because that's going into the sewer system. The one out here, we shouldn't be paying a premium rate on, because that's just a landscaping. So if we find out that in reality, if they both have been turning, we're gonna find out that we've been paying a premium rate out there when we shouldn't have. And we should probably be going and asking for a refund.
Oh, boy.
It's the difference between whether we owe or whether we pay. It's real simple. You just turn on the meter, read the numbers. Turn on the sprinkler, let it go for 10 hours.
There are restrooms out there, correct?
I'm sorry.
Restrooms out there, correct?
That's a
Would
different
that
meter.
come into
But
play?
that's a different meter.
They're different meters.
We're aware of that.
There's a separate meter for the concession and the irrigation.
And so, from what Mr. Johnson explained to me at our meeting, there is 3 separate meters.
Correct.
So, the one that's coming, we're not being double billed.
What I'm saying is that what goes out there, we don't know if it's being run through our main meter. Is what I'm saying, right? We don't know. We're just guessing. We're going by what people are telling us. And nobody's checked it to verify.
If you look at the drawing, though,
I know, we don't know the drawing means anything though, because we've seen too much stuff out there, stuff in this building that wasn't done correctly. And we're talking about thousands of dollars here. It'd be real easy to figure out if we owe, because you do have a main meter coming into the building. And if that's turning while your sprinklers are on, that means we're being paid, we're being billed for that. So what's going on out there, even if it is turning, it should be at a lower rate. So we should be deducting off of this meter because we're not going to be paying the premium rate on that second meter. We should be paying the landscaping rate, not the sewer rate.
Is
We're
that,
not paying the
I
sewer
don't-
rate on that one. That's,
the assumption that you're making, Paul, is that the water feed is not separate. So the meter is at the building. So the water comes in the main and then goes to the building. That meter reads what goes to the building. Water keeps going down the line, and the other meters, the other 2 meters read what goes to the other,
Right.
our
But we've already
concessions.
paid for it once in the
No,
first.
not
meter.
if it, because the
Past
water.
the T.
Yes,
Right.
you don't pay for everything that comes down the main at your main breaker or the main meter for the school. Only the water that enters the school gets read at that meter. I mean, if you look at the plan right up there, which, can you verify that that is the accurate plan for our, I mean, that sort of thing doesn't change.
That's what we got. I mean,
that's what we have
So
from,
if we go by that, then it can't be read once and again.
can't be read twice.
Based on what I'm understanding.
Where's the location of the meter for the school building?
in the boiler room. I got it marked on there. Here it says meter. Where it goes in with the yellow, I got it highlighted. Up to the top of the screen there.
Can somebody show me where you're talking?
Right there, in the boiler room.
Do-
I'm still saying we gotta come down to the make sure that we're not being charged twice
But
for the same amount of
that's
water.
assuming that the way that it was plumbed and done in the first place is completely, I mean, they just don't build buildings like that. They do not.
Well,
Water,
They build facilities to bill you accurately.
yes.
We want to be billed accurately. And if you're going to run it into two separate meters, it's going to be at two separate rates. So how do you determine which one is which? It's like you got to put in 2 meters.
We have 2 meters. We have 3 meters, actually.
Well, I know we have 3 meters, but that the other one's real minor. But what I'm saying is that if we were to go out tomorrow and turn on all the sprinklers and shut off the main water at the meter and going into our building, it should not affect what's going on out there. But we don't know that.
But what
That's
if
all I'm
you're,
asking.
what if you're wrong though, and they go, well, you should be paying more than what they've offered to settle this with.
Well, we're
And-
looking, it's not just the settlements into the future too, though.
But we've already gotten 8 years for free, and they're only going back 2 years. If we start saying, well, that's not a good enough deal, you owe us money, and we end up paying more than 2 years, I mean, if you want to check your theory out, we should do that, but there's some risk involved, I
Did you
would
speak
think.
with Mr. Johnson directly?
I did not speak to anyone other than our superintendent.
Did you read the information that I sent?
I did.
Okay.
It didn't explain how the meters branch off, though.
Well, we're looking at it,
Right.
and maybe if, that's a future experiment that we feel like needs to happen, we could talk about that and do that. But my guess is that what they're back billing us for is not going to be more than what we would find out in that experiment. That, they're billing us at a fraction of what we use for the past 10 years. So my guess is that we're not going to save any more money by running that experiment. We're already essentially saving a ton of money by paying just these 2 past years.
The difference between paying or not paying is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about savings. I'm talking about, do we even owe the money?
Well, that's not even negotiable at this point.
Yes,
That's not a
it is.
negotiable
Mhm.
item.
It's not a negotiable item if we don't owe it. Then we ought to take a bottom line and say, that meter has already been paid for once. We don't pay a second time for the meter, the water that's already gone through there.
The
So
bot,
we're not negotiating something that we shouldn't be owing.
But we're
I'm
not
not
being, we're
convinced
not
that
being
we-
billed twice, though.
I'm not convinced of that.
and that would be making a big assumption that many professionals in their line of work haven't done due diligence and haven't done their job the way that it should have been done. And I am not willing personally to make that statement or that assumption. I believe that we've been given an offer that is very generous and 2 years to repay. Moving forward, we have to adjust our budget accordingly. It will play into the discussion on the turf and referendum discussion. But I just don't see going down that road as a positive approach. And I appreciate your concern and I appreciate the question that you have, but this is enough evidence for me and trust that these professionals are doing their job well enough and thoroughly that they wouldn't charge us for water that we've been billed for already.
I'm going to say I disagree, only the fact that we owe it to everyone to make sure that when we spend this kind of money, especially if it wasn't prepared for, that we at least, can't we put it off for a month and make sure that we know that we really owe it? Because this is not just the settlement. I understand somebody's issued you a settlement and said this is a really good deal, but this is going into the future too. This is not just about the settlement. This is about going into the future because they will continue to read that meter time and time and time. Again, if we don't owe it, we shouldn't be paying for it, is what
The
I'm
meter
saying.
wouldn't have been put in if it wasn't made to monitor and regulate water that was
The
needed to be
amount
paid for.
may have been put in there to subtract so that we don't pay the premium rate.
No.
So in other words, that's what I was explaining.
I
You pay a
understand.
different rate when it goes out there.
Well, it is a different rate. It already is,
It
is
should
that
be
true?
deducted
It
if it's
already is a
rate
different
going out
rate.
there.
Yeah, what goes to that irrigation system the city's indicating is billed at a lower rate than what comes into the building at the main meter and what goes into the concession stand where we have restrooms and sinks and have water that goes into the sewer system.
I'm just saying I'd feel better if we could just test it and just come back a month from now and say, you know what, we checked it out. I just have questions now that didn't get answered between last 2 weeks ago and today. I still have questions, and I asked another question, and the answer was, I don't know. Not sure. This is a lot of money to pay out on, I'm not sure.
I would be really uncomfortable doing that.
Me too.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
Yeah, so you have a motion and second on the floor, and I think at this point, Mrs. Birch, you'd have to have somebody rescind or amend the motion, because you do have a motion and second on the floor, correct? Yes.
Who made the motion? Caitlin? Okay. Would you like to rescind or amend your motion?
No.
All right. Is there any more discussion before I call it to a vote? Is that fair?
Mr. Predney, I'd ask just I would ask a final question, that is, what does that irrigation system irrigate? I understand that it's larger than just the football field.
There's four is the football field, practice football fields around the school, and the softball field, the varsity softball field, and now it's the JV baseball field, used to be the varsity baseball field. So there's 4 programs that it runs.
Listen, I think you should take the deal with most of you. And if you want to do some investigation later and you find out, Paul, you got a winner, you can always go back to the city and say, gee, this is what we found out. But we better be right about that, okay? Because it could backfire. But if you wanted to check it out.
I agree, but my statement is that this is something that we could do on our own. We don't need to have the city involved at all. We could easily have done it on our own.
Well, I think you should do it on your own if you want to, but I think we should take the settlement offer. And if you find out otherwise, don't listen to reason. But, I don't know, that's my opinion. It's an interesting theory.
Caitlin, will you please read the motion back?
Those lines go all the way then up to almost the elementary then?
No, it makes the loop around the high school.
Okay, so then there's a different line that goes.
The irrigation goes up there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, sorry.
That goes to the fire hydrants and
Who did this?
around the school.
Oh, okay, I got you, thanks.
All right. We are going to have a roll call vote on the motion to approve the back billing for the irrigation system.
Robert Holland.
Yes.
Daniel Melton.
Yes.
Kate McKinney.
Yes.
Deb Olson.
Yes.
Aaron Birch.
Yes.
Marcia Schurz.
Yes.
Paul Johnson.
No.
6-4, 1 against, motion passes.
Can I make one comment? This was a huge time of transition for the school district. We went from paying bills, budgeting at the current middle school that, I'm not in the business of pointing fingers. This was a huge oversight, and it stings now because we get this large bill to pay. But I'm not in the business, again, pointing fingers and saying that this is just the city's fault on the oversight. We went from the middle school to the high school. We hadn't seen what our bills were going to be yet here. We didn't necessarily know what the water bill was going to be like out on the field and separate at the building, that it was a time of adjustment for everybody. And to me, I can see how this could have been missed at the school district level as well. We went from again, an old building to a whole new building in operation. We had staff transition at that time and a lot of staff transition since then. So I think, again, the deal that's been made, I feel is fair, and yeah. I don't want to be pointing fingers.
Okay, we'll be moving on to item H, which is to consider the Kids Hope USA continuation and expansion. Thank you, Mr. Predney. Does anyone?
Yep, so you have a 4-piece administrative recommendation on that. First piece, to continue Kids Hope USA programming at the elementary school. Supporting existing mentor-mentee groups as they transition into the 5th grade at the Spooner Middle School. And that the middle school does some monitoring of that process. And we know that we have a semi-annual evaluation of the Kids Hope USA program in conjunction with personnel from the Wesleyan Church. And lastly, consider the start of planning for a middle school program based on the feedback that you'd get from this trial period at the middle school after that next joint evaluation takes place.
Thank you, Dr.
Can that motion be all in one, or does it need to be separate?
I'd encourage you to make it all one motion.
Okay, I make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Can I just go on record that I'm refraining from voting on this matter since I am part of the directing team at the Spooner Wesleyan Church for this program?
Maybe ask for abstention.
Abstention. Thank you. We're moving on to item I, first reading of the student handbook update recommendations. I'll take a motion to approve the first reading of these student handbook updates.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We're moving on to item J, to consider the Tech Ed PD Try 1. I'll entertain a motion for that, to approve that.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Sorry, Marcia. Any opposed? Okay.
Erin?
Yes.
Can I make a recommendation on it, and it has been voted on? If somebody's listening to this meeting and they haven't listened to the COW meeting, they don't know what we're talking about. And we only know what we're doing because we were at the COW meeting and we prepared for this meeting. I think if you could give us a 1-minute summary to the audience, not every detail, but just an idea as to what we were doing. And we approved this, we had a presentation, this is the summary of what it was. Take a minute. That way we're complete and we're not suffering from lack of transparency.
Sure.
You want me to take it?
Sure.
Hugh's not here tonight, so I can brief the board.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Miller presented an opportunity for staff to earn an extra personal day via participating in tech training throughout the year. So he presented that to the board. It comes at a very low cost in an era where we are looking for different ways to provide some extra benefits to staff while still providing the PD, because our PD days throughout the year get quite full very fast.
And if I remember correctly, we're limiting it to a number of...
First year, we're gonna do 20 staff, see how that goes, and then expand it beyond there.
Yep, so again, just asking for a one-year exception to the employee handbook to try this. As Mrs. Grindell has indicated, our demand for professional development time is greater than the time that we have available, so we are looking for some out-of-the-box ways to fulfill these training needs and still be respectful of the school calendar that the board has adopted.
Thank you. We've already motioned, seconded, and voted, so that was just informational. Thank you, Robert. That was a good suggestion. We'll move on to item K, to consider social media archiving.
I make a motion that we accept the social media archiving. And just to clarify for the audience, that's for all information that we have on, including social media. So we have it archived in all one spot, easy to get to. In the case of a request, it gives us a lot better way of handling all information without backlogging here at the school, if I'm got that right in a nutshell.
Very, very good description, yes, sir.
Oh, thank you. That's my motion and explanation.
Nicely done.
I'll second.
All right, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll move on to item L, to consider the deletion of policy 0155.1 regarding the committee structures. This was in response to our commitment to move to the committee of the whole meeting structure.
And I make that motion that we delete this policy so that we can continue in the same format that we have been, which has dramatically improved how we run our meetings, the information of our meetings, and all of us being better informed to make better decisions in our meetings.
And
I'll second.
thank you. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll be moving on to item M, to consider the 2019-20 WIAA membership. This is a renewal at no cost to us.
Correct.
I'll entertain a motion that we approve the WIAA membership for 2019-2020.
I make a motion that we approve the 2019-2020 WIAA membership.
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Moving on to item N, to consider or approve the lead custodian, media center aide, instructional support specialist, math specialist, reading specialist, and interventionist job descriptions. I'll entertain a motion to approve those job descriptions.
Was that the first reading? I'm sorry. That-
This is it.
I think this is to approve them.
Yep.
Is that correct? Correct.
I'll second.
I made the motion, Paul seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Move on to item O, to consider the rollover of activity accounts.
Just a question. Does this address the one issue with, were we changing the whole deal with the Oregon fund and not rolling? Is that included in this motion, or?
Well, this would be, if you scroll down to the bottom of that attachment, the recommendation from administration is that we recommend writing off that Oregon fund account in this audit cycle.
So can that, does that need to be a separate motion?
You can take the recommendation, you can take it as recommended by administration, so rolling over the accounts in good standing and then the write-off of the Oregon fund.
I make that motion as Shannon stated. Well said.
Why don't you repeat it?
So both will be included in that.
Yep.
Do we have a second? I'll second that. Is there any discussion? We'll have a roll call vote on this.
Robert Coleman.
Yes.
Nathaniel Milton.
Yes.
Kate McKinney.
Yes.
Deb Olson.
Yes.
Aaron Birch.
Yes.
Marcia Schurz.
Yes.
Paul Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes. We'll be moving on to item P, to consider the Standard Response Protocol Memorandum of Understanding. Make a motion that, is it just accepting this memorandum of understanding?
Just the administrative recommendation is the board signing off on this memorandum of understanding for standard response protocol.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll be moving on to item Q, which is to consider the 2019-20 academic standards.
I make that motion and also would request that we just go over that real briefly for the listeners.
Annually, school boards are required to provide information regarding the academic standards that'll be used in school for the administrative recommendation for the 2019-20 school year is that for mathematics, it's the district standards. For English language arts, the district standards. Science, the next generation science standards. Social studies, Wisconsin model academic standards.
Thank you, Doctor.
So the motion has been made to adopt these academic standards. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving on to item R. It's the second reading of the district nurse suggested edits to the Narcan policy. The recommendation is to approve the second reading. Do I have a motion that we approve the second reading?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Well, again, can we just get something for our audience, not for ourselves?
So this would be that we would have Narcan on site at all three offices, I believe, was the recommendation, so that in the case of an overdose, we would be able to provide life-saving measures to any person, community member, parent that would be in need of that. This is something that our nurse had said is coming more commonly in districts, and considering the epidemic of opioid overdose in our area, this is something that is sort of a proactive measure to protect our community and students. Does anyone have anything else to add? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any, thanks, Marcia. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, everyone. We'll be convening into closed session.
Can I just say one thing before we do that? I just want to say, Paul, thank you for getting us to go to the committee of the whole. I think it was a great idea. I think we all have been informed and we all have enough time to ask questions, and I think it's a great opportunity to hear everything at the same time, and it's also been a good way for us to be informed and make those decisions that are informed. So we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll need a roll call vote. A motion to go into closed session, please?
I make a second.
Roll call vote.
Robert Mullen,
Yes.
Nathaniel Melton,
Yes.
Kate McKinney,
Yes.
Carol Olson,
Yes.
Aaron Birch,
Yes.
Marcia Schurz,
Yes.
Paul Johnson.
Yes.
All right.
I'll entertain a motion that we reconvene into open session.
I make that motion.
I second.
Roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Okay, we went into closed session at 7:14. In closed session, there was a motion by roll call vote and carried to approve the compensation and extra duties of Dennis Shears as presented by Dr. Aslin. That is what we completed in closed session. We came out of closed session at 7:25. And roll call vote.
Roll call vote now.
Okay, Robert Holen,
Yes.
Nathaniel Melton,
Yes.
Kate McKinney,
Yes.
Deb Olson,
Yes.
Aaron Birch,
Yes.
Marcia Shears, she's absent, Paul Johnson, yes.
Motion passes. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Shears.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Pursuant to the statute,